153 chemical aphorisms. These 153 alchemical aphorisms were published, together with the 157 alchemical canons, in Franciscus Mercurius van Helmont, 153 chemical aphorisms, briefly containing whatsoever belongs to the chemical science, done by the labor and study of Eremita Suburbanus, printed in Latin at Amsterdam, Octob, 1687, to which are added some other philosophic canons or rules pertaining to the Hermetic science, made English and published for the sake of the sedulous labors in true chemistry, by C.H.R. Packe, London, for the author, sold by W. Cooper, 1688, to all the lovers of the chemical art. Gentlemen, about a month since, I received, among some other things, those 153 chemical aphorisms from Amsterdam, where they had been newly printed in Latin, for which end they had been lately transmitted from Vienna, as appears by the author's epistle to his friend. When I had perused and well weighed them, with that little judgment I could, I thought that I could do nothing more grateful to the sons of art than to publish them in English, which I have done with all the care and exactness I could. The other 157 philosophic canons I have taken from Bernardus Gipinotus a Porto Aquitano, where they are inserted with 115 famous cures of Paracelsus, together with Pontanus his epistle, and some other philosophic things, and printed in the year 1582, which together make up a compendium of the chemical art, and may serve the studious for a vade mecum, or small pocket companion, with which he man converse in his retirements. That it may be both pleasant and profitable to the disciples of Hermes, is the only desire of, gentlemen, your ready servant, sure. Packe from my house at the sign of the Globe, in chemical furnaces in the Postern Street near Moorgate. Decem. the 8th, 1687, the author to his friend. You see here my highly esteemed friend, part of a certain excellent writing, digested into brief aphorisms, as a compendium of all those things which philosophers are wont to observe about the great work of their stone. Not that all things are here expounded which belong to the complete description of the physical tincture, for there are more things yet behind, with which the author intends to adorn it, inasmuch as he hath determined to fortify these aphorisms which he hath here omitted. From the authority of the principal philosophers, in which work he will accurately explain the similitudes, figures, and other obscure and confused manners of speaking, which everywhere occur in the writings of the philosophers. That so at length those things which hitherto have been delivered too intricately and confusedly by most writers may appear in some methodical order. Nevertheless, the principal scope of this author is not so much to expose or set forth his own inventions, as to reduce the valuable sayings of others into order, which he willingly submitteth to the judgment and examination of those who have made a greater progress in the art than himself. But although I know this to be the purpose of the learned author, nevertheless I choose rather to transmit this little work to you, imperfect as it is, that you may weigh it, and cause it to be printed, than that the sons of art should any longer want this small help, that it may give a light to those who err and go astray in the midst of darkness, and that the author may judge from the event of this his labor, whether it will be worth his pains to admit the whole. Work to the world. Farewell, my good friend, and let me continue to have a place in your favor. Dated at Vienna, the 2d of September, 1687, Clei Chymical Aphorisms, to which may be commodiously referred whatsoever belongs to the chemical science, aphorismi. Alchemy is the perfect knowledge of whole nature and art about the kingdom of metals. F, which by reason of its excellency is called by many other names. F, and was first invented by one alchemist, as some think. APH 4, and in all times hath been so highly esteemed by philosophers by reason of its great utility. APH 5, that the adepti being moved with pity would not altogether conceal it. APH 6, nevertheless they have delivered it but confusedly, enigmatically, and under allegories. APH 7, lest it should fall into the hands of the unworthy. APH 8, but that it should be known to its own sons only. APH 9, with which sophister should have no commerce. 10. Wherefore this science is the gift of God, which he bestoweth on whom he pleaseth. APH, either by the revelation of faithful friend, or by illuminating the understanding of the inquirer. APH 12, who seeketh it by prayer, diligent reading, profound meditation, and assiduous labor. APH 13, therefore it behoveth the studious of this art to be of a pure heart, entire manners, steadfast to his purpose, and a religious keeper of secrets. APH 14, and moreover, that he be endowed with a good wit, health of body, and a plentiful fortune. APH 15, because this art requireth the whole man, being found out, possesseth him, and once possessed, freeth him from every long and serious business, causing him to disregard all other things, and to repute them as being foreign and strange. APH 16, the parts of alchemy are two, viz., the theory and the practice. APH 17. For seeing that art can do nothing about metals except it imitate nature. APH 18. It is necessary that the knowledge of nature should precede the knowledge of art. APH 19. Alchemy, therefore, in respect to the theory, is a science whereby the beginnings, causes, properties and passions of all the metals are radically known, that those which are imperfect, incomplete, mixed, and corrupt may be transmuted into true gold. Pech. 20. Seeing that the final cause in physic coincideth with the form, the principles and causes of metals are their matter, form, and efficient cause. Pech. 21. The matter of metals is either remote or proximate. APH 22. The remote is the rays of the sun and moon, by whose concourse all natural compounds are produced. Pech. 23. The proximate is sulfur and argent vive, or the rays of the sun and the moon determined to a metallic production under the form of certain humid, unctuous, and viscous substance. Pech. 24. In the union of this sulfur and argent vive consisteth the form of metals. APH 25. The which, seeing that it is various, according to the various manner of the mixture and the degree of decoction, hence arise various metals. Pech. 26. Nature only effecteth this union in the bowels of the earth by a temperate heat. APH 27. The union of this water immediately flow forth two properties of passions, common to all the metals, viz. Fusibility and extensibility. APH 28. The causes of a metallic fusibility are argent vive, as well fixed as volatile, and of volatile sulfur, not fixed. Pech. 29. The cause of extensibility is the viscosity or toughness of argent vive, whether fixed or volatile. APH 30. Metals, therefore, are mineral bodies, of a close and compact substance, and of a very strong composition, fusible and extensible under the hammer, from every dimension. Pech. 31. Which are commonly reckoned fixed, viz. Gold, silver, tin, lead, copper, and iron. APH 32. Of these, two are perfect, viz. Gold and silver. APH 33. The other four are imperfect. Pech. 34. Of which two are soft, viz. Tin and lead. APH 35. And two hard, viz. Copper and iron. APH 36. The perfection of metals consisteth in the abundance of argent vive and the uniformity of the substance, or perfect union of the principles, which is performed by a long and temperate decoction. 37. Hence flow various properties or passions, by which the perfect metals are distinguished from the imperfect. APH 38. Of which the first is that the perfect metals easily receive argent vive, but refuse sulfur. Pech. 39. The second is that they are not burnt, nor inflamed, but suffer the examen of the cupel, and of the cement, or, at least, of the former. APH 40. The third is that the parts of which they consist, to wit, the moist and dry, cannot be dissipated, severed, or broken by the fire, which dissolveth all things. Pech. 41. The fourth is that they suffer the greatest extension of all the metals. APH 42. The fifth is that are the heaviest of all the metals, laid only excepted in respect of silver. Pech. 43. The sixth is that being heat fiery hot, they send forth a sky color or coalescial splendor, neither are they melted before they have been some time fiery hot. Pech. 44. The seventh is that they never contract rust. APH 45. The imperfection of metals consisteth in the abundance of sulfur, and the non-conformity of the substance, or in the imperfect mixture of the principles by too short or a sudden and intemperate decoction. Pech. 46. By so many properties or passions as flow from the water, the form of the imperfect metals is plainly diverse from the properties of the perfect metals. Pech. 47. The first of which is that the imperfect metals easily admit sulfur by not mercury, except so far as they differ but little from it, by reason of their imperfect coagulation, of which sort are tin and lead. Pech. 48. The second is that they are burnt and inflamed, nor do they endure the trial of the cupel and cement. APH 49. The third is that their essential parts, viz. The moist and the dry, are dissipated and separated by the fire. Pech. 50. The fourth is that they are less extensible than the perfect metals. APH 51. The fifth is that they are lighter than the perfect metals, laid only and accepted in respect of silver. Pech. 52. The sixth is that being heat fiery hot, they either contract a blackness or a shining whiteness, and are either melted before they come to be red hot, or afterwards flower than the perfect metals. Pech. 53. The seventh is that they contract rust. APH 54. Gold is a metal most perfectly digested, of a yellow color, mute and shining, the heaviest of all the metals, sustaining the trial of the cupel and cement. Pech. 55. Silver is a metal less perfect than gold, but more perfect than all the rest of the metals, digested, of a pure whiteness, clean, sounding, and abiding the cupel. 56. Tin is a soft metal, imperfectly digested, white, shining with a certain blueness, somewhat founding, and is the lightest of all the metals. APH 57. Lead is a soft metal, imperfectly digested, livid, mute, and heavy. 58. Copper is a hard metal, imperfectly digested, of an obscure redness, livid and sounding. APH 59. Iron is a hard metal, imperfectly digested, of an impure whiteness, livid and growing black and sounding much. 60. All the metals, therefore, of the same original, and arise from the same principles. APH 61. Neither do they differ among themselves, except in their quantity and quality of their principles and their mixture, according to the various degree of their coction. 62. Whence it followeth that the imperfect metals have a disposition of receiving the form of the perfect metals. APH 63. Provided they be freed from their sulphurous and heterogeneous parts, which are the causes of their imperfection, by a perfect decoction. 64. Either by nature alone, in the bowels of the earth, in process of time. APH 65. Or by the same nature, in an instant above the earth, by the help of art. 66. By the projecting of a medicine, which in a moment penetrateth and tingeth, the imperfect metals being melted, and argent vive being made hot. AF 67. Which transmutation of the imperfect metals into perfect, that is not only possible. APH 68. But also true. APH 69. Is confirmed by the common opinion of philosophers and by experience. 70. And therefore the stone or medicine of philosophers by which this transmutation is made ought to have in itself the form of common gold or silver. 71. For if it should want that, it could not actually introduce it. APH 72. Every natural compound is distinguished from other natural compounds by its own particular form, being really and actually distinct from all other forms of divers natural compounds. 73. Hence, among all substances which are determined in one of the three families of nature, to wit, the vegetable, animal, and mineral, there is nothing found but common gold, which actually containeth in itself the form, qualities, accidents, signatures, and properties of common gold. 74. Wherefore common gold only will be the only subject, from which the form of gold ought to be taken, for the composition of the stone of the philosophers. 75. Common gold is only simply perfected by nature, that is, it hath no greater perfection than itself wanteth, as it is gold. APH 76. And therefore cannot communicate its perfection to other imperfect metals. 77. Therefore, if we labor in that common gold should introduce the form of common gold into the imperfect metals for their perfection, it is altogether necessary that the common gold should be made more than perfect, that is, that acquire more aureity and virtue than is required for the single perfection of common gold. 78. No natural compound can be made more perfect, unless it be again subjected to the operations of nature. APH 79. And as often as it is subjected to those, so often it acquireth a more perfect form in its species. 80. Which, that it may be done, it is necessary to resolve it into a matter like to that of which nature hath most nearly produced it. APH 81. For naturally, there is no new generation made, without a previous corruption. 82. And seeing that common gold, as we said above, hath its nearest rise from an unctuous and vicious humidity, APH 83. It is manifest that it cannot be made more than perfect, except it be first resolved into such its first matter. 84. Every natural agent assimileth to itself the patient, either in substance or in quality. APH 85. Therefore, to resolve common gold into a humid, unctuous, and viscous substance, there is required an humid, unctuous, and viscous agent. 86. Not any one, but one that is homogeneous, and of the same nature with gold. APH 87. Such a one as hath eminently the form of gold, or may obtain it by a new specification and determination, when it particularly insinuateth itself into common gold. 88. For, seeing that it ought naturally and radically to mix itself with the principles of gold, and to penetrate the gold through every the least part of it, so that after the mixation no separation can ever be made. APH 89. After which manner things heterogeneous can never unite themselves. APH 90. And moreover, that it be more subtile, more active and spiritual than common gold, and therefore the first matter of gold. APH 91. Seeing that nothing can be naturally dissolved, but in that, and by that, of which it is compounded. APH 92. Whence we conclude that no vegetable, animal, or mineral substances which are not of a metallic nature, such are stones and salts, by any artifice of depuration, or preparation, or subtility whatsoever, can make common gold more than perfect. Bitch. 93. Neither also metallic spirits, which are not of the nature of gold, such are sulfur, and arsenic, and other lesser or middle minerals, which are anyway compounded of those, although they are more subtile, and more active than gold. Bitch. 94. For seeing that it is spoiled of every sulfur, therefore it doth not admit the said spirits. APH 95. Although the virtue and efficacy of mineral spirits to be so great in the kingdom of metals, that they cannot be altered, but by those only. Bitch. 96. Therefore that common gold, by its resolution, may be made more than perfect to the end, that it may bring the imperfect metals to perfection. It is highly necessary to have recourse to a metallic spirit which is of the same nature with gold, and therefore can unite itself with it. Bitch. 97. But seeing that, from what hath already been said, that common gold is nothing else but a pure argent vive, perfectly digested by nature in the mines of the earth. Bitch. 98. It followeth that it is to be dissolved and rendered more than perfect by no spirit, but by argent vive alone, crude and indigested. APH 99. But not the common argent vive, nor that of bodies, which is drawn from metals. APH 100%. Although gold hath a great friendship those argent vives. APH 101. For those, seeing that they come very near to the nature of gold. APH 102. They are only subject of a passive transmutation. APH 103. In which nature hath ceased to operate equally as in gold. APH 104. Therefore, seeing they are not in the first matter of gold. F 105. They cannot act upon it. APH 106. But by the argent vivant philosophers, to wit, that unctuous and viscous natural humidity only, which is the root of all the metals. Bitch. 107. Which metallic seed, seeing that it is nowhere obvious to our senses and minds. APH 108. And to create a seed is not in the power of man, but of God only. Ash 109. From what hath been said, it is necessarily inferred that there ought to be some mineral afforded, which may furnish us with this mercury of philosophers. Bitch. 110. Which, seeing that according to the premises, it ought to augment the tincture, fusibility, and penetration of gold. APH 111. And among minerals, there is none found which can perfect the color of pale gold and facilitate its flux, and render it more penetrating, but antimony only. 112. Therefore that appeareth to be the only mineral, of which and by which the said mercury may be obtained. APH 113. For seeing that antimony cannot communicate more tincture to gold than the natural perfection of gold requireth. APH 114. And gold, as hath been already said, ought to be more perfectly tinged by the mercury of philosophers. APH 115. This mercury cannot be had of antimony alone. APH 116. But by it as a medium from other imperfect metallic bodies which abound with the tincture of gold. APH 117. Of which sort there are found only two, to wit, Mars and Venus. Bitch. 118. Whence we conclude that of antimony, and by its help, of Mars also, and Venus, our royal menstruum is to be elicited by the work of art and nature. Bitch. 119. Antimony, Mars, and Venus consist of sulfur and mercury. APH 120. Sulfur, as we have said, is averse to the nature of gold by reason of its unctuosity, adustive, and impure terrestrati. Bitch. 121. Wherefore the said matter of our menstruum, before all things, is to be purged from its combustible sulfur. APH 122. That only its mercury may serve for our intention. Bitch. 123. This mercury, without further preparation, being projected upon gold, doth not adhere to it with profit, but like other mineral spirits flieth the force of the fire, and leaveth the gold unaltered and unclean, or carrieth it up with itself. Bitch. 124. By reason of its earthy, feculent, and fugitive aquosity, which is yet in it. APH 125. Therefore that of this mercury, the mercury of philosophers, may be made, which can unite itself with gold, and render it more than perfect. It is altogether necessary that it should be depurated and freed from its feces. Bitch. 126. No natural compound can be perfectly purged without its dissolution. APH 127. And every dissolution of a natural compound is terminated in the moisture of which it was made. Bitch. 128. Therefore, seeing that the matter of our menstruum is metallic. APH 129. And therefore, as is manifest above, ariseth from an unctuous and viscous humidity. Pitch. 130. It is required for its perfect purgation that it be resolved into such an unctuous and viscous humidity. APH. 131. This dissolution of the matter requireth its previous calcination. Pitch. 132. For seeing that naturally no dry thing is dissolved into a moist except salt, or that which by the force of fire hath contracted the like nature. 133. Our matter is first to be calcined, that it may be rendered fit for solution. APH. 134. The total dissolution of no dry body already dissolved into a liquor can be perfected, or a disunion of its essential parts be made, without its putrefaction. Pitch. 135. Wherefore this ought to be done to the matter of our menstruum, for its complete depuration, equally as to gold, for its plusquam perfection, as we have said before. Pitch. 136. But every moist body is corrupted and putrefied in a light or gentile heat. APH 137. Hence our matter being resolved into a moist, viscous, and unctuous substance is to be farther promoted and disjoined by digestion. Pitch. 138. That the subtile parts may be elevated from the gross, and the pure from the impure by sublimation. APH 139. For the perfecting those operations, nature affordeth us only two mediums, viz. Fire and water. APH 140. The combustible and volatile parts are separated by fire. APH 141. But the earthy and feculent by water. APH 142. In the said philosophic sublimation of the mercury, and its union with gold by various solutions and coagulations, the practice of alchemy consisteth. APH 143. That thence may result a Catholic medicine, most potent in perfecting the imperfecter metals, and in restoring of all diseasy bodies whatsoever. F. 144. Which medicine is commonly called the stone of philosophers, because it resisteth the fire. APH 145. And for other reasons, it is also called by other various names. Pitch. 146. From the premises, the chemical excellency is rightly defined to consist of metallic principles exalted by various philosophic solutions and coagulations unto the highest degree of perfection. Pitch. 147. For seeing that nature alone in the mineral kingdom proceedeth no further than the perfection of common gold. APH 148. It is to be assisted by art, that it may render it more than perfect. Pitch. 149. Therefore the practice of alchemy in general consisteth of two operations, to wit, the preparation of the mercury of philosophers, and the composition of the elixir or medicine. Pitch. 150. Which although they are not very difficult. APH 151. Nevertheless, they are not always without their perils and ill success. APH 152. Not to be avoided, but by industry, and an expert, courageous, and prudent artist. 153. Nor do the said operations require any great charge or cost. 157 canons. These 157 alchemical canons were published, together with the 153 alchemical aphorisms, in Franciscus Mercurius van Helmont. 153 Chymical Aphorisms, briefly containing whatsoever belongs to the chemical science, done by the labor and study of Eremita Suburbanus, printed in Latin at Amsterdam, Octob, 1687, to which are added some other philosophic canons or rules pertaining to the Hermetic science, made English and published for the sake of the sedulous laborers in true chemistry, by C.H.R. Packe. London, for the author, sold by W. Cooper, 1688. This was included in the earlier compendium by Benedictus Figulus, Pandora Magnalium Naturalium, Strasbourg, 1608, to the lovers of Hermetic studies. All the books of philosophers, which treat of the abstruse Hermetic medicine, are of nothing but a spigirical labyrinth, in which, for the most part, the disciples of art fall into various ambages and deceits, so that even to this day there are but very few who have found a true end. For if in this labyrinth some easy way hath shewed itself to the erring and straying, which seem to extricate and lead them out, presently some impassable corners have occurred, which keep them in a perpetual imprisonment. So, if in the writings of philosophers, manifest and easy ways sometimes offer themselves, which at the first sight seem to the searchers to be plain according to the letter, presently unwary operators, being deceived by the open words of Phylosophers, are involved in innumerable deceits. To this may be added that many pseudo-chymists deceive many by their specious frauds and cheats, dispersing and selling up and down lying operations and processes, in which they promise golden mountains to the credulous, sowing tares and bidding them expect wheat. Wherefore I, being moved with compassion, have offered these rules, which are full of physical reasons and truth, in which you have the whole art perspicuously depicted, as on a writing table. Examine and weigh them throughly, fence your opinion with firm arguments, and then you cannot err. For he that without judgment believeth every sophism is willing to be deceived. The true art is hidden under many coverings, by which the unwary are easily confounded. Therefore, before you begin to work, weigh well, and prudently consider the natural causes of things, or else enter not upon the matter. It is better to employ your time in diligent meditation and profound judgment than to undergo the punishment of a foolish and inconsiderate temerity. Farewell, BEP. Some philosophic rules, or canons, concerning the stone of philosophers. What we seek is either here or nowhere. Canon, that which is nearest to perfection, is the more easily brought to perfection. 2. Things imperfect cannot by any art put on perfection, except they be first purged from their feculent sulfur and earthly grossness, which is mixed with their sulfur and mercury, the which a perfect medicine performeth. 3. To render the imperfect fixed, without the spirit and sulfur of the perfect, is altogether impossible. 4. The heaven of philosophers resolveth all the metals into their first matter, that is, into mercury. 5. He that endeavoureth to reduce metals into mercury, without the philosophic heaven, or metallic aqua vita, or their tartar, will be greatly mistaken, because the impurity abounding in mercury from other dissolutions is even discernible to the eye. 6. Nothing is perfectly fixed, which cannot be inseparably joined with that which is fixed. 7. Fusible gold may be changed and turned into blood. 8. To render silver fixed is neither to be resolved into powder of water, for that is radically to destroy it, but it ought necessarily to be reduced into mercury. 9. Luna cannot be transmuted into Sol, except it return into running mercury, but by the physical tincture, the same is to be judged of the other metals. 10. The imperfect bodies together with Luna are brought to perfection, and converted into pure gold, if they be first reduced into mercury, and that by a white or red sulfur by the virtue of an appropriate fire. 11. Every imperfect body is brought to perfection by its reduction into mercury, and afterwards by decocting with sulfurs in an appropriate fire. For of those are generated gold and silver, and they are deceived, and labor in vain, who endeavor to make gold and silver after another manner. 12. The sulfur of Mars is the best, which being joined to the sulfur of gold, bringeth forth a certain medicine. 13. No gold is generated, but what was first silver. 14. Nature compoundeth and cocteth her minerals by a gradual process, and so from one root only procreateth all the metals, even to the ultimate end of metals, which is gold. 15. Mercury corrupteth gold, resolveth it into mercury, and maketh it volatile. 16. The stone is compounded of sulfur and mercury. 17. If the preparation of mercuries be not taught by some skillful artist, it is not to be learned by the reading of books. 18. The preparation of mercury for the philosophic menstruum is called mortification. 19. The praxis of this great work exceedeth the highest arcanum of nature, and except it be shewed by divine revelation, or the work itself by an artist, it is never obtained from books. 20. Sulfur and mercury are the matter of the stone, therefore the knowledge of mercury is necessary, that a good mercury may be taken, by which the stone may be the sooner perfected. 21. Indeed, there is a certain mercury hidden in every body, being fitted without other preparation, but the art of extracting it is very difficult. 22. Mercury cannot be converted into Sol or Luna and fixed, but by a compendium of the abbreviation of the great work. 23. To congeal, to fix, is one work of one thing only, in the vessel. 24. That which congealeth and fixeth mercury, that also tingeth the same, in one and the same praxis. 25. The degrees of fire to be observed in the work are 4. In the first, the mercury dissolveth its own body. In the second, the sulfur drieth up the mercury. In the third and fourth, the mercury is fixed. 26. The matters being radically permixed in their profundity through their most minute parts are afterwards made inseparable, as snow mixed with water. 27. Divers simples being put into putrefaction, profuse divers others. 28. It is necessary that the form and the matter be of the same species. 29. An homogeneous sulfur is of the same mercurial nature, which produceth gold and silver, and this pure sulfur is gold and silver, although not discernible to the eye in that form, but inasmuch as it is dissolved into mercury. 30. There may be a certain fixed unctuosity extracted from gold, without a phylosophic dissolution of the gold into mercury, which serveth instead of a ferment generating Sol and Luna, and that is performed by way of abbreviating the work, which Geber caleth rebus. 31. The metals being resolved into mercury are again reduced into a body, a small quantity of the ferment being admixed, otherwise they always retain the form of mercury. 32. The heaven or tartar of philosophers, which reduceth all the metals into mercury, is the metalline aqua vita of philosophers, which they also call their dissolute feces. 33. Sulfur and mercury consist in the same homogeneous nature. 34. The stone of philosophers is nothing but gold and silver, endowed with an excellency and more than perfect tincture. 35. Sol and Luna, in their own proper species, have no more than what is sufficient for themselves, which it behoveth to reduce into the nature and power of a ferment, by preparation and to digest, whereby the mass may be multiplied. 36. The chief extremities in mercury are two, viz., too much crudity and too exquisite a decoction. The words in the original are nimis exquisita, but the word nimis, I judge, should have been minus, for as much as that agrees well with crudity, no crude subjected being well decocted. 37. Philosophers observe this for a maxim, that every dry thing whatsoever quickly drinketh up a moisture of its own species. 38. The calx of Luna being altered, hastily drinketh up its own mercury, the philosopher's foundation of minerals. 39. Sulfur is the anima, but mercury the matter. 40. Mercury is stayed or detained by the sulfur of imperfect bodies, and is coagulated into an imperfect body, and passeth into the same metallic species of the imperfect body, by whose sulfur it was congealed and concreted. 41. To make Sol and Luna of the imperfect bodies by sulfur is altogether impossible, for nothing can give or afford more than it hath. 42. The mercury of all the metals is their feminine seed, and their menstruum, being brought so far by the art of a good operator. For by the projection of the great work it receiveth and passeth through the qualities of all the metals, even unto gold. 43. That a red tincture may be elicited, the mercury is to be animated with the ferment of Sol only, but for the white, with the ferment of Luna only. The work of philosophers is perfected by a very easy labor, and performed without great costs, and that at any time, and in any place whatsoever, and by all men, provided they have the true and sufficient matter. 45. The sulfurs of Sol and Luna stay or retain the spirits of their own species. 46. Sol and Luna are the true sulfurs, sperms, or masculine feeds of the stone. 47. Everything which has a power of retaining and fixing ought necessarily to be stable and permanent. 48. The tincture which giveth perfection to the imperfect metals floweth from the fountain of Sol and Luna. 49. Whosoever take the sulfur of Venus are deceived. 50. There is nothing given to Venus by nature, which is necessary to the great Spadric work, or that can serve for the making of Sol and Luna. 51. Note, the gold converted into mercury, before a conjunction with the menstruum, can be neither anima, nor ferment, nor sulfur, nor doth it any way profit. 52. The work being brought to the end may be rendered fiery by reiteration. 53. In the abbreviation of the work, the perfect bodies ought to be reduced into running mercury and a dry water, whereby they may rightly receive a ferment. A preparation of mercury, which is performed by sublimation, being adhibited after revivification, is better than that which is done by amalgamation. 55. The anima cannot impress the form, except the spirit intervene, which is nothing else but the soul turned into mercury. 56. Mercury receiveth the form of gold by the mediation of the spirit. 57. Sol being resolved into mercury is the spirit and anima. 58. The sulfur and tincture of philosophers design one and the same ferment. 59. The mercury of the vulgar is rendered equal to all the mercuries of bodies, and cometh very near to their likeness in nature. 60. A ferment rendereth mercury more ponderous. 61. If the common mercury be not animated, or wanteth an anima, it affords nothing of moment, either to the universal or particular work. 62. Mercury being rightly mortified is then impressed with an anima. 63. Sol may be prepared into a ferment, so that one part may animate 10 parts of common mercury, but this work hath no end. 64. The mercury of the imperfect bodies stand in a medium between the common mercury and the mercury of the perfect bodies, but the art of extracting it is very difficult. 65. Seeing that the common mercury, by projection of the stone, is changed into Sol or Luna, therefore it may ascend higher, be exalted, and rendered equal to all the mercuries of bodies. 66. Common mercury animated is a very great arcanum. 67. The mercuries of all bodies are changed into gold or silver, by an abbreviation of the work. 68. A moist and gentle heat is called by the name of the Egyptian fire. 69. It is worthy to be noted that Luna is not the mother of common silver, but a certain mercury, endowed with the quantity of the celestial Luna. 70. Metallic Luna is of a masculine nature. 71. The mercury of the vulgar, through coldness, putteth on the nature of a barren woman. 72. The mercuries of semi-minerals resemble the nature of Luna in likeness. 73. All things whatsoever are produced of Sol and Luna, to wit, of two substances. 74. Male and female, that is, Sol and mercury, grow together into one. 75. Common mercury, without preparation, is remote from the work. 76. 4 of mercury and 1 of Sol, that is, of the ferment, constitute a true matrimony of male and female. 77. The solution is performed when the sol is resolved into mercury. 78. Without putrefaction, no solution is perfected. 79. Putrefaction endureth and extendeth itself even to whiteness. 80. So the great secret is the mummification of the spirit, whereby the menstruum is prepared, for by it the gold is resolved. 81. Mercury resolveth gold into a water of its own form, that is, into a running mercury, as itself is. 82. Dissolution is the beginning of congelation. 83. Soul being converted into a running mercury remaineth in the same form for a little time. 84. The ferment drieth up the mercury, and rendereth it more ponderous, retaineth and fixeth it. 85. The soul of philosophers is called their fountain. 86. The matter is converted by the power of putrefaction into a poultice or lute, which is the beginning of coagulation. 87. There is a certain compendius, by which the sulfur is taken from Sol and Luna, whereby every mercury may be fixed into gold and silver. 88. The matter ought never to be removed from the fire, nor suffered to cool, otherwise the work will be destroyed. 89. When the matter attaineth the color of blackness, then it is necessary to give the second degree of fire. 90. The lotion or washing of philosophers is a similitude, for the fire alone performeth and perfecteth all things. 91. The venome and feeder is taken away, without the addition of anything, by the force of the fire, which alone performeth all things. 92. The fire, by its acute and penetrating virtue, purgeth and cleanseth, an 100 times more than any whatsoever. 93. In the generation and vegetation of anything whatsoever, the heat being extinct, death presently invadeth the growing matter. 94. The spirit is heat. 95. The matter being brought to whiteness cannot be corrupted and destroyed. 96. Every corruption of matter is impressed with the deadly venom. 97. The glass or vessel is called the mother. 98. The virtue of sulfur is not extensive beyond the term or limit of a certain proportion, neither can it exceed unto an infinite weight. 99. This question is to be observed. Wherefore the philosophers call their menstruum the matter of the stone. 100%. Sulfur meriteth the name of the form, but the menstruum of the matter. 101. The menstruum representeth the lesser and lower elements, viz., of earth and water, but sulfur the two superiors, to wit, fire and air, as a masculine agent. pH 102. If you should break an eggshell so that the chicken should come out, it could never be hatched, nor if you open the vessel, and the matter shall seal the air, you can perform nothing. 103. The calcination which is made with mercury in a furnace of reverberation is better than others. 104. The philosophers' manners of speaking are studiously to be noted, for by sublimation they understand the dissolutions of bodies into mercury by the first degree of fire. The second operation followeth, which is the inspissation of the mercury with the sulfur. The third is the fixation of the mercury into a perfect and absolute body. 105. The number of those which err is infinite, who do not allow mercury as it is in its own form, and amalgamated with the calx of the perfect bodies, to be the subject and matter of the stone. 106. The white medicine is brought to perfection in the third degree of fire, and this degree is not to be exceeded in the preparation of the white medicine, for if you do otherwise, you will destroy the work for the white. 107. The fourth degree of fire bringeth forth the matter red, where appeareth also divers colors. 108. The work after it hath attained the degree of whiteness, not being carried on to a perfect redness, remaineth imperfect, not only for the white, but also for the red tincture, therefore it is left dead till it endeth in a perfect redness. 109. After the fifth degree of fire to perfect it, the matter acquireth new virtues. 110. The work hath not attained perfection, except that medicine shall be inserated, and rendered subtile, like wax. 111. The work of insuration is perfected by a double or triple quantity of mercury to that which gave the stone its original. 112. The insuration of the white medicine is performed by the white water without the animation of the mercury by Luna, but the insuration of the red tincture is done with mercury animated with Sol. 113. It sufficeth that the matter after insuration remain like a poultice or paste. 114. Repeat the insuration till it will bear a perfect proof. 115. If the mercury with which the medicine is insurated being converted to a fume shall fly away, it availeth nothing. Wherefore do not manage it ill, for the matter by that means will go backward. 116. The medicine, being rightly insurated, will explain to thee that enigma of the king returning from the fountain. 117. Sol being reduced into his first water or mercury, if he shall be refrigerated or cooled by the help of common mercury, the work perisheth. 118. Philosophers take the matter prepared and concocted by nature, and reduce it into its prima materia, forasmuch as everything it hath its original, even as snow is resolved inseparably in water. 119. The wise men reduce years into months, months into weeks, and weeks into days. 120. The first decoction of mercury which nature performeth is the only cause of its own single perfection, beyond which it cannot ascend of itself, for it behoveth to help its simplicity by sowing gold in its proper earth, which is nothing else but a pure mercury, which nature hath a little, but not perfectly digested. 121. But in the second decoction of mercury, besides the first of nature, the virtue of the mercury is multiplied tenfold. 122. And the stone is made of mercury by reiterating the decoction, sol being admixed, for by this means the male as well as the female are twice decocted. 123. Sol ought to be put to mercury, that he may be dissolved into sulfur, and then cocted into the stone of philosophers. 124. Every philosopher in all times contemplated mercury, when nevertheless he neither knew nor understood it. 125. Every mercury whatsoever original, being rightly taken in a due manner, exhibiteth the matter of the stone. 126. Everything from which mercury may be elicited is the subject of the philosophic medicine. 127. Whosoever taketh or understandeth the writings of philosophers, according to the letter, is grievously deceived, when they affirm their mercury to be one. 128. One mercury exceedeth another, in a greater heat, dryness, decoction, purity, and perfection, which ought to be prepared without the corruption and loss of its form, and to be purged from all its superfluities, in which the treasure and secret of the stone consisteth. 129. If the preparation of common mercury were known to the not studious of philosophy, they would have no need to search after any bene. Mercury of philosophers, nor another metallic and mercurial aquavita, nor another water of the stone, because the preparation of vulgar mercury containeth all those in itself. 130. Every mercury of metals and minerals may by successive degrees be cocted and exalted unto the quality of the mercuries of all the other bodies, even to a solar body, and therefore be deduced to the degree and virtue of what metallic body you please. 131. Common mercury before a legitimate preparation is not the mercury of philosophers, but after preparation. It is called by the name of the mercury of philosophers, containing in itself the true way and method of extracting the mercury from the other metals, and it is the beginning of the greater work. 132. Common mercury being prepared is taken for a metallic aquavita. 133. The passive mercury in menstruum ought by no means to lose the external form of mercury. 134. Whosoever uses sublimate or calcined or precipitated powder instead of running mercury, for the completing the work of philosophers erreth, and is wholly deceived. 135. Whosoever resolveth mercury into a clear water, for the perfecting of the philosophic work, erreth grievously. 136. To compose or make mercury of a limpid water is in the power of none but nature. 137. In the great physical work, it is necessarily required that the crude mercury should resolve the gold into mercury. 138. If the mercury be reduced into water, it dissolveth the gold into water, and in the work of the stone it is highly necessary that the gold should be dissolved into mercury. 139. The sperm and the menstruum ought to have the same external form. 140. It is the doctrine of the philosophers that it is necessary for us to irritate or stir up nature. Therefore, if the menstruum be dry, it will be in vain to hope for a solution. 141. The seed of the stone ought to be taken in a form like and near to the metals, and which cometh very near to metals. 142. It is highly necessary to take a seed of the philosophic medicine, which resembleth common mercury. 143. It is the secret of all secrets, to know the mercury and matter to be the menstruum of the stone, and the mercury of the perfect bodies to be the form. 144. Mercury by itself only affords nothing of moment to generation. 145. Mercury is the element of earth, in which the grain of gold ought to be sowed. 146. The seed of gold is not only put into a multiplication of its quantity, but also its virtue. 147. A perfect mercury requireth a female for the work of generation. 148. Every mercury ariseth from and partaketh of two elements, the crude of water and earth, that which is concocted of fire and air. 149. If any man would prepare and exalt mercury into a metal, let him add a little ferment to it, that it may be exalted to such a metallic degree as he would have it. 150. The great arcanum of the whole work is the physical dissolution into mercury, and reduction into the first matter. 151. The dissolution of sol ought to be perfected by nature, not by the work of hands. 152. When sol is conjoined or married to its mercury, it will be in the form of sol, but the greater preparation will be in the calx. 153. It is a question among the wise whether the mercury of Luna, being conjoined with the mercury of the sol, may be taken instead of the philosophic menstruum. 154. The Mercury of Luna is of masculine nature, but 2 males can no more generate than 2 females. 155. The elixir consisteth in this, that it be elicited and chosen from a most pure mercury. 156. He that desireth to operate, let him work in the solution and sublimation of the 2 luminaries. 157. Gold giveth a golden color, silver a silver color. But he knoweth how to tinge mercury with Sol or Luna, hath arrived to a great arcanum. Finis. Here thou hast, friendly reader, those philosophic canons without which, whosoever thou art, thou wilt hardly attain thy willed end. If thou receive these hermetic fundamentals with a grateful mind, and exercise thyself in this theory with a pious meditation, time may hereafter bring forth the praxis of those rules, not that imperfect or maimed one, which I have shewed to some, but entire and complete, confirmed by many arguments and solid reasons. In the meantime, farewell.